Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this virtual public meeting talking about visitor use and front country planning for Ross Lake NRA and the State Road 20 corridor. Really appreciate folks taking the time to log in today and to join us for this presentation and for Q&A. Seeing that folks are filtering in, so we're going to go ahead, given that it's the top of the hour, and dive into the presentation that we have. I will take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Rachel Collins. I am with our Central Planning Office, and I'm going to be facilitating the meeting tonight and helping out with the presentation. And also joining me, and she will introduce herself later in the presentation, is Denise Schultz. She is the Chief of Visitor Services from the North Cascades National Park Service Complex. Wanted to do a couple of logistics as we head into this meeting. You are seeing on your slide that we are in a Teams Live environment today. And so instructions for the virtual meeting are showing here. If you need to adjust your video settings or turn on closed captioning, those buttons are in your lower right-hand corner. If you need to pause or adjust the sound, that is in your lower left-hand corner over there. And we are going to be doing Q&A at the end of this presentation, so hang around with us for that. If you have questions or want to hear others' questions and the responses to those, there is that Q&A box up in the top right corner. You can go ahead and click on that and go ahead and type the question in. We have staff in the background who are going to be collecting questions across the presentation, so feel free to pop those in there at any point. You don't need to wait till the end. And like I said, we're going to be collecting those up, gathering them, sorting them kind of into themes and buckets, and then we'll go over them at the end of the presentation. So as we go ahead and get started, I wanted to kind of let folks know where we're going and what we're going to be covering tonight. We're going to go over the introduction and kind of a little bit of an orientation to the Park Service complex, the purpose and significance and what we're managing for. We're going to dive in, focus a little bit more, and talk about the purpose and context of this project specifically, why we're here, what we're going to be working on, thinking about, and talking about. We want to share with you some strategies and ideas that we're thinking about to improve experiences, help enable more connected experiences for folks, overcome barriers to access. And we also want to be hearing your ideas during the 60-day comment period. So want to use this as an opportunity to share what we're thinking about, get some feedback, and also let folks know that that's the kind of feedback we're looking for, is more ideas. And then we want to talk about your role and how you can participate in this comment period. So with that little bit of overview and orientation about what we're trying to achieve here and where we're going next, I will go ahead and turn it over to Denise to walk us through the introduction to the park and a little bit of an overview.
Thanks, Rachel. Welcome, and thank you all for joining us this evening. We appreciate your taking the time to help us plan for recreation and visitor experiences in the Highway 20 corridor, obviously including Ross Lake National Recreation Area. As Rachel mentioned, my name is Denise Schultz, and I'm the Chief of Visitor Services here at the park. I've been here at North Cascades for a little over 10 years, so this is really a great time to be able to look at all of the things that we might be able to do. Next slide, please. So let's start with the basics. The National Park Service mission, it basically, the alternatives in the plan and the decisions made with the plan have to be consistent with our overarching mission of the National Park Service if the action is going to occur on Park Service lands. This mission is grounded in the Organic Act of 1916. Specifically, the Act declares the National Park Service has a dual mission, both to conserve park resources and provide for their use and enjoyment in such manner and by such means as will leave them unimpaired for future generations. Planning for and managing visitor use in concert with resource protection is at the heart of the National Park Service mission. Go ahead, Rachel, thanks. North Cascades National Park Service Complex is comprised of 3 units. You can see them there, the dark green area on this slide. North Cascades National Park is, we have a north unit and a south unit. Lake Chelan National Recreation Area is the unit down in the southern portion. And then Ross Lake National Recreation Area bisects North Cascades National Park North and South units, and basically is the Highway 20 corridor and continues on up to the Canadian border. As you can see from this map, the park complex is surrounded mostly by Forest Service, so there's a lot of public land that's available for recreation and access in this area. The complex itself comprises of 684,295 acres. About 94% of the complex is part of the Stephen Mather Wilderness. And Ross Lake National Recreation Area, as far as visitation, gets about 1 million visitors a year. North Cascades National Park and Lake Chelan National Recreation Area each get about 40,000 visitors a year. We've seen, especially in Ross Lake National Recreation Area, that visitation has increased about 40% over the last 10 years, and staffing for Park Service staff has decreased about that same amount. Additional planning efforts that we're working on will include a wilderness management plan that's scheduled to begin in 2027. And we're also currently participating in ongoing planning efforts with Chelan County for Stehekin, which is part of Lake Chelan National Recreation Area. For Ross Lake National Recreation Area, park significance includes North Cascades landscapes, which are obviously breathtaking, as well as ecosystems and biodiversity. For fundamental resources and values, for Ross Lake National Recreation Area, it includes culture and history, research and education, the Skagit River, diverse recreation, and also water-based recreation. And while these have been identified specifically to Ross Lake National Recreation Area, they are also significant for the surrounding lands, including the Highway 20 corridor. When planning for visitor use and recreational opportunities, a holistic approach provides the most likely path to success. Rachel will describe the details of the planning process, some ideas that have already been generated, and how you can contribute your ideas, suggestions, and comments. So Rachel, I'm going to turn it over to you to continue with the presentation.
Great. Thanks, Denise. And as she noted, we're going to jump into a little bit more details on the purpose of this project specifically. So the purpose of this plan is really to take a new and a modern look at the on-the-ground conditions. We want to be providing safer, more accessible, and a variety of visitor experiences within that State Route 20 corridor and the Ross Lake NRA. We want to be really thinking about what tools and strategies do we need to make sure that we're managing in a really proactive way and moving away from reactive responses. This is going to help set us up for long-term sustainable management in a way that is thinking towards resiliency and responsiveness, especially in a rapidly changing environment that we see here. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a couple slides here. So the goal of this plan overall is to really be thinking about the strategies to address a wide range of issues resulting from changing conditions, as well as impacts related to from fires, flooding, changing visitation, changing reservoir levels, changing staffing levels, and really thinking about what does it look like to maintain and improve quality access, both in the near term and in the long term. Why are we doing this planning now? What's bringing us to the table to be thinking about this? We've noticed over time that, and as Denise said, that visitation is changing. And the challenges that are posed by the park's steep topography really mean that we have to be really thoughtful about what uses, activities, facilities, and services we're providing for whom and in which locations, and really thinking about how we're meeting needs in that landscape. We notice that there's people who are visiting at the same time and needing to be thoughtful about that. So, for example, the video that I just played shows some parking challenges that we see on busy days and so we're going to be looking at ideas about how to move cars off the roadside so that folks have easier access to trailheads and reducing that competition for parking. Some other objectives that are bringing us to the table and are really helping to frame this planning effort is, like I just noted, wanting to address parking and roadway congestion to minimize safety hazards from walking on roadways, especially during the summer season. We want to be thinking about the capacities for the areas along that State Route 20 corridor, and what does it look like to have facilities that are right sized for that, and how do we making sure that when people are showing up that we have a place for them, and that it's the experience they're looking for. Along with that, we want to be thinking about what new activities could we be doing, how do we provide that safely, which activities and in which locations are going to be really best suited for both the visitor and for the landscape, and how much the landscape is changing. Another thing that we want to really be spending some time thinking about is alternative and new camping opportunities. Do we have the right camping in the right places for the right people? How might we mix that up? I'm going to share some more concrete examples of that in a few slides here. We also want to be thinking about tribes and traditionally associated groups, and how we can create meaningful private space for them for traditional practices within the park. Where might that go, and how does that interface with visitor use, visitor activities? And really thinking about the character of the park, wanting to learn a lot more about why people are coming, what they're looking for in an experience of the State Route 20 corridor within North Cascades, as well as within the lakes in that area. So we've noted it a couple of times, but I'll also bring it up here that we are talking about the park, and I'm zooming in a little bit from Denise's map of the area from Marble Mount to Washington Pass. So that'll include access to Cascade River Road there on the west side of the park. Moving up the corridor, we've got, want to be thinking about New Halem, as well as the area of Goodell Creek and the camping there. We want to be thinking about Gorge Lake and the camping and the trailheads in that area. Some focus time on Thunder Knob Trailhead, Colonial Creek, Sourdough Beach on the north side of Diablo Lake, as well as activities and experiences on Ross Lake, as well as up to Hosemean and over to the east entrance. So in this next part of the presentation, we're going to do an overview of the strategies and ideas that we have been thinking about. Over the last couple of months, a group of Park Service staff and other partners have been collaborating on, like, how might we approach with a new set of tools? What new ideas should we be considering? And what are some of the ways that we can make for a more connected and improved experience, while continuing to uplift those fundamental resources and values for both recreation and resource protection that Denise noted. So in this next section, we're going to go area by area. I'm going to share some of the ideas that we're thinking about, and hopeful that that will queue up for folks some things that they can be thinking about, some feedback you might have on those ideas, or new ideas that you can share with us for consideration in our process. So some of the things that we're thinking about along Cascade River Road and along State Route 20 is, how do we provide predictable access to these areas? And so we're looking at some ideas for concessions or other partner operated shuttles to address some of the congestion, ease the arrival at trailheads. We're thinking that this might be an interesting idea for Cascade River Road and other destinations along State Route 20 that might start in Marble Mount or start in other destinations. So we'd love to hear your ideas about, what does access look like along this corridor? How would you like to access trailheads? Would you be open to accessing it differently, and potentially leaving a car somewhere else, especially for those folks who are doing multi-day trips? We're also looking at some of the services in Marble Mount and really asking ourselves, where is the best location for the Wilderness Information Center? What's the most accessible location? How might we co-locate it with other visitor services to streamline someone's arrival? And how could we maybe provide better service and be more efficient with that? And if there's other ideas folks have in the area of Marble Mount, we would love to hear them. Heading up the road to the Goodell Creek area, we're thinking about this campground and how we might modify it to make space for those traditional and tribal uses. So we might move some campsigns around, look at the balance of public access with the protection of cultural resources, look at where group camping can go and what river access looks like. So if this is an area of the park that is really important to you, we'd love to hear from you about what makes this area special, what would you like to be doing here, and what's maybe interfering with that use. As we head up, we're also going to spend some time thinking about New Halem. Another place where we have some group camping maybe gets consolidated down to Goodell, and maybe looking at new individual tent sites in the current location of the New Halem camping area. And also, where might we put more overnight parking in this area of the park that has a little bit more space, especially as things continue to grow. And also as people are doing more contained camping or van camping, is that an activity that we could be providing for New Halem? Or if that's the way that you like to access the park, where would you like to go? And what kind of facilities do you need? We're looking at the Gorge Lake Campground and the Sourdough Trailhead. This is an area where we're thinking about how we might redesign that space for other overnight uses, such as walk-in camping, the overnight van parking. How might we relocate the Sourdough Trail so that it's a new route, or relocate that area? And also, if we're doing camping in other locations, might this be a good idea, a good place to do a picnic area? And to just kind of change up the use that's in that area. So as we noted earlier, a lot of this project is thinking about, what do we want to put where that's going to really meet visitor needs and help with our protection goals. So if you have ideas for these areas, we'd love to hear them. In the Colonial Creek area, this is an area that we have noticed that competition for parking is high, and we've got two different parts of the visitor services here on opposite sides of State Route 20. So we want to take a hard look at this area and think about what campsites might be better suited for day use. How might we better organize the parking in this area so folks know how to find it, and then they know how to get to their activity, and maybe mitigate that roadway crossing in some way by going under the bridge, adding some trail connections in this area, maybe relocating the Thunder Knob Trail to improve the Thunder Knob Trailhead to improve the accessibility of it and the wayfinding for it. And other ideas in this area. So if you're a person who has just found Colonial Creek or has been exploring this area for a long time, we'd love to hear via our comment portal why this place is important to you, what you're looking to achieve here, and if you have any ideas that we can be considering. We are also going to be looking over at Sourdough Beach. This is an area where we have noticed people are doing more and more recreation. And so what information do people need, or signs to help navigate the area? How might we improve the parking? Are there other facilities that are needed in this area that we should be looking at? And how would we do that in a way that's suitable for the space? And also, again, want to hear your ideas for this part of the park. We also, over Ross Lake, as we continue our tour east into the park, we have noticed over time that lake levels continue to be low and might stay low. And that's meaning that the campsites on Ross Lake might be harder to access or be further from the shoreline. And so we're looking at how might we relocate some of those campsites to more suitable locations, or how might we explore other kind of floating campsite ideas to protect the lake shores. So if you have ideas that you want to share with us about that, love to hear them. We're also knowing that this Ross Dam Trail and the Ross Dam Lake parking area are areas where that fill up really quickly, where there's a lot of people who want to be parking there. And so looking at some fresh ideas for how we might redesign that area to increase the flow, ease the parking there. But this is another location where we're looking at maybe having some shuttle routes between New Halem and this trailhead so that access is still there, but it doesn't have to be in a private vehicle. So curious from folks about how they would maybe potentially use that. And if you have any other ideas to share with us about this part of the park. And then swinging up to Hosemean, another area that people love. Looking at that area about how we might use it. Is this a good area that we maybe convert to backcountry use or issue permits for this use? Or if there's any other ideas that folks have for the future of Hosemean, we'd love to hear those ideas. So as I noted before we flip into the next phase, wanted to say here that we've been spending some time thinking about this and trying to think creatively, but we also know that more minds in a brainstorm can be really, really fruitful. And so this comment period is really important to us because we wanted to invite as many people who are interested in this place, have yet to discover it, have loved it for a long time, into this brainstorm with us to think about new ideas, think creatively about the future of these areas, and how might we manage towards our goals of improved experience, reduce barriers to access, and visitor activities, facilities, and services that meet visitor needs and resource protection goals. So where's this whole process going? Right now, we are in this critical phase of gathering public feedback on our initial ideas and inviting folks into the brainstorming process with us. We are going to be doing this through a 60-day comment period that opened last week and will be open through the early part of August. It'll close August 11th. Really encourage you and the people you know and your family and friends who recreate in this area to let us know what you're thinking about and what do you value about this place? What would you like to see going forward? We're going to be taking all that feedback in the fall, incorporating it, nesting that into concepts and doing some refinement, looking into the feasibility of those actions and how we would maybe do them. We'll then in the spring start working on a draft plan and any accompanying environmental analysis that we would do along with that, with a target of having a draft plan out for public review and another series like this during the summer of 2026, and then incorporating feedback from that into creating a final plan and then starting into implementing those strategies in the fall of 26 and into the spring of 27. So I've noted it a couple times, but you have a very important part of this process and a critical role. So between now and August 11th, we would love to hear from you. To be most helpful, we have questions on the screen here. We really want to hear about what experiences in this part of the park are the most meaningful, important, and connected to you. What are the park staff doing well, and why would you like to see it continued? Sometimes it's really helpful for us to know, like, this is a thing that is really important to me and it's going great and we just don't need to change it. And that's a great thing for us to know. But we also want to know if there are issues that interfere with your ability to access or get the most out of your experiences, and what are your ideas on how we could address these barriers. And once you've had a chance to look at some of the strategies, what would you improve on your visit? What would you change that we could consider? And do you have any other ideas? We've put the we've put the link in the chat. It's in a couple other places too, but the best place to provide feedback is to go on to the planning portal. The URL is there on the screen. And there's a form there to fill out and provide your feedback directly to the project team, the planning team. So with that, we are going to have some time for questions. So we've been seeing them roll in. And want to try to get them a little bit organized. So we're just going to hang on for like 1 minute, sort the questions, get them organized, and we'll be right back with the Q&A. So this is also a great time if you were sitting back and digesting all that information to go ahead, type your questions in, and we'll start the Q&A here in about 1 minute. Okay, thanks for hanging with us. Just getting a little bit sorted in the background. I do see one question coming in logistically, that can we make the slides from this evening's presentation available? We can put them up on the project website. I will also note that all of this same content is on the story map that's linked on the project home site. It's all the same content plus a little bit more that's on that digital newsletter or on that story map. So if folks are looking for this information, a more detailed version is in the story map, and one of my teammates will push that link through in the announcements here in just a second. Okie doke. Seeing that we have one question about going back to will wilderness and backcountry actions be included in this plan? So Denise, could you pop on and answer that one for us?
You bet. Thanks, Rachel. So the answer to the question is partially. We are looking at recreation on Ross Lake, which is considered backcountry as far as how we manage that area. And we're also looking at access to the east side trails via Forest Service, that are just off Highway 20. So we are looking at backcountry. Wilderness, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to do as a separate planning process, and that is scheduled to start in 2027.
Great. Thank you, Denise. And I saw the question come in about the slides maybe being available. I wanted to let folks know that all of the content that we went over is on the story map that we have there, so folks can go ahead and click on the story map and see the information we presented today, plus more available in that format. And that is all the questions that we are seeing for tonight. So we'll go ahead and hang for just another minute or two to see if there's anything else that folks want to drop into that question pod while we have a few minutes. Okie doke, it looks like that's all the questions that we have for tonight. So just a couple reminders from me. Did want to note one more time, put the URL up there on the screen, that we are looking for feedback on these key questions for folks who may not be as oriented to the Park Service's comment sites. Wanted to give you a screenshot of when you click on that link, you're going to get to a page that looks something similar to this. You are looking for this open for comment. If you click on that, you'll get taken to a comment page that'll have a form for you to fill out with those questions again. And with that, I just wanted to say on behalf of the park and the project team, a heartfelt thank you for joining us. Thanks for being here. And we're really looking forward to seeing all your comments on this project. Thanks again for carving out the time, and have a good afternoon.